Alright, so today we're going to be ranking all 39 survivors based on their teachable perks from worst to best. This video will be pretty chonky, so please stay with me as we dive into our first and worst survivor. Coming in at 39, we have Thalita. And I really do feel sorry for this girl. She probably has the most below average perks compared to any other survivor in this list. She has Friendly Competition, Power of 2, and Cut Loose. Now, Friendly Competition may appear to be promising at first glance, but it doesn't really provide enough in-game advantages in comparison to other generator perks. Her other two perks, Power of 2 and Cut Loose, are probably just as bad. Power of 2 is virtually useless when you lack communication with your teammates, and an extensive 140-second cooldown further diminishes its value. Cut Loose is like a budget version of Quick and Quiet, where you don't make any noise notification to the killer. I mean, it's okay, but why bring this perk when there are other perks that just do it better? So to sum it up, she gets a out of 10 from me. Just don't bother with her perks. At number 38, we have Haddie. And let's just say that her perks are very mid. She comes with Inner Focus, Residual Manifest, and Overzealous. Inner Focus isn't terrible, but it is very niche. It lets you see scratch marks of other survivors and hides you from the killer for 5 seconds if within 32 meters. This is kind of more handy if you want to try and save survivors, but honestly, do you really want to be playing cat and mouse with the killer, as it's not really exactly the most efficient way of using your time, where you could be doing generators or healing someone else. Residual Manifest is great if you are a flashlight user. This inflicts the killer the blinded status effect, which is pretty cool. But again, let's be real here, any good killer won't really be too bothered by the blinded status effect. And this is more just to troll those baby killers out there. Lastly, she has Overzealous, which isn't half bad depending on your skill level. It boosts your generator speed by 10% or even up to 20% if it's a lit totem if you break it, which is really good. Really good. But one love tap from the killer, this perk will go away entirely. So this is extremely niche and isn't really worth bringing when our perk slots are so valuable. At 37, we have Yeonjin Lee. She brings Fast Track, Smash Hit, and Self-Preservation. Fast Track is a perk that I've actually experimented with, and you really need to know how to hit your skill checks. And with this, you must bring Stakeout to make this more beneficial. If you miss one skill check with this perk, you ultimately lose 10% of the progress. The max amount of progress you could make through all the tokens that you can get with this perk is 12%. So yeah, you got to see the problem here. Smash Hit is debatably good. It depends who you are, but the way that I normally play a survivor is that you loop around the killer as much as possible around a pallet, and you don't really want to be dropping this pallet early, but I can see the strategy with that. So Smash Hit has got its uses, especially when a really low cooldown at 20 seconds. It does have some merits, it's just maybe not the best exhaustion perk that we have. And lastly, Self-Preservation is a bit of a weird one for me. Basically, if a killer hits a survivor near you, then you create no scratch marks. Great for flashlight slaves though, so if you do enjoy being around a survivor that's being chased a lot, this perk will actually come in quite useful. Taking the 36th spot is Cheryl Mason. It pains me to rank her this low, but her perks are extremely niche. The worst perk out of all of them is Repressed Alliance. This will allow you to block a generator once you've done a certain amount on that generator, and it gets blocked for 30 seconds, which means that the killer can't kick it, it won't get affected by ruin, it basically will be untouched. However, you're mainly going to use this perk if the killer is nearby, and 30 seconds is quite a long time. The killer is not going to be waiting around, they're probably just going to go somewhere else, and by that point, you go back to the generator and it still locks. So yeah, no, don't bring this perk. Another one of her perks is called Blood Pact, and this allows you, when you heal the obsession, grants you a 7% haste boost, and you can also see each other within a 16-meter radius. It's a nice perk, I guess, but the catch is that you will lose the benefits as soon as you leave that radius, making it not one of the best perks out there. Finally, she has Soul Guard. Now, this is the only thing that kind of redeems her a little bit, and this allows you to pick yourself up from the dying state if you are the obsession, and if you're not the obsession, then when you do get picked up by another survivor, you get an 8 seconds endurance status effect. which, you know, comes in clutch, especially when you bring Unbreakable. This is a solid perk. This I don't have anything against, but with the other 2 perks being pretty bad, that puts her at the 36th spot. Now we find Leon at number 35 on our list, and it really hurts me as my personal main is so low, but honestly his perks are, again, they're kind of just more for fun and not really competitive. He brings Bite the Bullet, Flashbang, and Rookie Spirit. Now his worst perk is probably Rookie Spirit, and this allows you to see any regressing generators when you hit 3 great skill checks within the trial. Really nice, easy to get the perk, just not the most amazing output for that, and definitely not worth a perk slot for it. Bite the Bullet is kind of cool. This perk allows you to heal without any noise at all, so no grunts of pain, and this also works when you're healing other people. So if you're a stealthy sort of healing person, this perk may be for you. And lastly, Flashbang is a fun perk, it really is, but it's quite hard to use. If you're new to the Flashbang, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, but when you do make that impact, it is fun, especially when you get the timings right. It's not a terrible perk, but killers do have a way of just counteracting that really easily by just looking up. You will have to find some creative ways to use this perk well. At 34, we have Yoichi, and just like every other survivor we've just listed, his perks are also very niche. He offers parental guidance, empathetic connection, and dark theory. Starting with the less impressive one, dark theory. This is a boon perk, and it is not exactly a game changer. It gives you a 2% haste bonus, but it does have a nice 24-meter range, which is pretty cool. Empathetic connection, and this provides you a 10% healing bonus, and then you can stack this with body knowledge, which increases the percentage. It's a nice perk to synergize with other healing perks, and it also grants you the ability to see auras, which can come in quite handy. Now his standout perk is the parental guidance. When you stun a killer, it conceals your scratch marks, pools of blood, and noise for 7 seconds. Now this brief window of time allows you to either like jump into a locker, or you do a quick dash towards another pallet. It works really well with smash hit to make a really spicy escape. I think this is probably a really solid perk. It's only if you add smash hit to the mix though. At the 33rd spot, we have Elodie. Her perks are not great, but they definitely have a really nice niche appeal to them. She has appraisal, deception, and power struggle. Appraisal allows you to rummage through a chest again, and honestly that's not great. If you're gonna bring a rummage perk, bring one that you want to bring, e.g. a medkit one, a toolbox one, or the flashlight one. Just bring one of them is a lot better than bringing this perk. Deception is quite fun. If you enjoy a locker build, you bring Deception. That is the only reason you bring this perk. It allows you to kind of open up that locker and run away, so they think that you're in that locker. It's kind of fun. It is really fun to use, but if it's only for a locker build only. And then lastly, we have Power Struggle. Now this allows you to drop a pallet while on the killer's back. You'll have to get a little bit of the struggle first before you can actually pull this down, but it doesn't require that much percentage. I think it's about 25% of the wiggle bar, so it's not impossible to get. This works really well if you have a dying state build, but it is quite unlikely for a killer to actually go through a pallet in fears of maybe another survivor being around the corner, so you won't really see much use out of this perk. At number 32, we have Vittorio, and he's actually quite interesting. He has some unique mechanics in his teachables. He has Quick Gambit, Fogwise, and Potential Energy. Now, Quick Gambit is probably one of the worst perks I've seen. It allows you to do a generator faster if you're the one being chased near a group of people doing a generator. And no, stay away from this perk, please. Any good killer will eventually stop chasing you and actually deal with the people on the generator, then, consistently chase you. And that's because it would cause more damage than just, hitting you once. So just stay away from this perk. Now, his other 2 perks are a little bit more interesting, which is Fogwise, which allows you to see the killer's aura every time you hit a great skill check. It's always nice to see where the killer is, whether he's chasing someone or like he's coming towards you. You will know if you're able to hit these great skill checks. So it's a pretty solid perk in my opinion. And then we have potential energy. This is the only perk that will stop 3-genning. Now 3-genning happens quite a lot in our games, and this one perk will really help out. However, this will continually happen, especially if you don't have a team with you, and if you do have a team with you, you can just communicate that a little bit better and just bring deja vu, to be honest with you. This perk just essentially allows you to grab the progression from one part of the generator to another and instantly do like a cool 20% if you're able to max that out. But if you get hit along the way, you lose all of it, so it's a very high risk, high reward. I would say if you're going to go and choose Victorio, choose him for Fogwise if you like communication. At number 31, we have none other than Ellen Ripley. Now, I really did struggle to kind of put her on this list, but ultimately looking at her perks, I can't see any strong features there. She has light-footed, which is probably really cool against the Spirit and the Xenomorph. It's actually quite good if you're going to use it for flashlight saves, so like the killer won't be able to hear them. But again, there are other perks that I just think does it a little bit better. Chemical Trap is really obvious when you put it on the pallet, but it does slow down the killer, which will safely allow you to go to another pallet somewhere else. Again, it's not amazing. It's only for like 3 to 5 seconds, so nothing too crazy. And her last perk, Lucky Star, which it has its niche moment, which allows you to see the auras of all the other survivors when you go into a locker. To be honest, I kind of wanted to put her down even further, but without enough practice with her, as she is the latest survivor at the moment, maybe she'll stick here, but maybe go down in the future. At the number 30 spot, we have Ace. He has Ace in the Hole, Open-Handed, and Up the Ante. Now, placing Ace was a really tough decision, because how do you base your perks when they're all luck based, and especially when they don't really do much in-game? Up the Ante is really useless unless like the whole team brings it, and it's kind of a gimmick perk. What this does is it gives you some extra luck from unhooking yourself, which is already a 4% chance, so you would really have to have a team with you and all of you run Up the Ante with all the luck add-ons and with all the luck offerings as well for this to make it work. Ace in the Hole is quite a useful utility perk. This allows you to grab add-ons when you pick up stuff from items from chests. This is really cool for kind of farming those add-ons instead of trying to get them from the blood web, and I think this is the only perk that allows you to leave with those add-ons if you have this perk. And then we have Open-Handed, which allows you to extend any aura reading abilities, and the only perk that I kind of really see this useful with is Bond, because it's only 36 meters, but if you have any other perks that have an aura reading, then this perk will extend it, which is nice, but is it worth a perk slot? That's debatable. At number 29, we have Jake. The man that once used to have the most powerful perks in the game has really fallen from grace. He has Saboteur, Iron Will, and Calm Spirit. Now, the reason I actually put him this high up is because of Calm Spirit. Now, you're probably wondering why, because it is a horrible perk. Overall, yes, it is a horrible perk. And the current meta, currently right now in November 2023, everyone is bringing the Killer's Locker perk, which allows everyone to start screaming. This is a really strong perk that killers have been using for information, and more people in competitive scenes are using Calm Spirit to counteract this. That is the only reason he's been pushed up this high. Iron Will is, I guess, an okay perk still. I mean, you create 75% less noise when you are injured, but any killer with a good headset will still be able to hear you, honestly. So I don't really see too much point of this anymore. And lastly, we have Saboteur. You have to make a whole build to make this work, because you can break a hook, which is nice, but it does take some time and it will come back quite quickly. So you will need a coordinated team and a dedicated build for this. Up next at number 28 is Jane, and her perks include Poised, Solidarity, and Head On. Now, if I was kind of ranking perks based on how fun they are, she would be way higher, but unfortunately her effectiveness in actual game is a lot different, let's say. I really love Head On. Head On is a perk that allows you to stun the killer once you jump out of a locker. It's got like a 3-second charge before you can actually stun them, but because of this perk, you can create a really cool locker build, and it is a lot of fun just like jumping into a locker and then like stunning them and just like speeding off, you know. It's great. It's a cool, fun perk. I would definitely highly endorse this perk if you want to have some more fun in the game and be less competitive. Now looking at our other two perks, Poised and Solidarity, they're not like terrible. Poised, I used to run Poised way back in the day, where it provides you no scratch marks for 10 seconds when someone does a generator. This could be done at any point, so if you're being chased by the killer, then you can basically escape, really, unless he's like right on your tail. This doesn't have to be a generator you do, this is a generator that it's done at all, so this will activate regardless. It's fun, it's cool, but not as effective as I thought it was way back then. And Solidarity allows you to heal 50% of your health state when you have healed someone else fully. This is kind of like an easy trade-off, and if you're both injured, you know, prioritize them over you, and both of you will be healed a lot more efficiently and quicker. It's a decent perk, but like again, there are I think other perks now that are a little bit better uses in our valuable perk slots, but definitely not terrible. At number 27 we have David. Now let's just address the worst perk in the game, No Mither. Yes, I said it. No Mither is just a meme perk. Like, it's genuinely for players who are kind of getting bored of the game or finding it too easy. Then you run No Mither. It allows you, it basically makes you broken for the entire game, but gives you a 75% less of grunts of pain, no pools of blood. You're basically playing on hard mode, but it is the worst perk in the game. Do not bring this if you are trying to play competitively, and that's why he is so low on this list, because no one should be bringing this perk if you are looking for wins, basically. But he has maybe one redeeming perk that kind of keeps him, well, literally trashed here, which is Dead Hard. Now, Dead Hard is a perk that allows you to take an endurance status effect whenever you want when you're injured for 0.5 seconds. Yeah, you better time that really good. And I think Dead Hard has completely fallen from grace. It really has fallen, because good killers, once they know once, good luck trying to use it the other time, because what they're going to do is they're going to get really close to you, and you'd really want to use that Dead Hard, but they're going to wait for you to use it first. When you can pull off this perk, it is actually very good. But I think with the high tier killers, knowing that you have Dead Hard at some point after the first hit, for example, then I think it really does fall off from there. And then lastly, we have We're Gonna Live Forever. This allows you to give yourself 100% healing speed when someone is in the dying state, which allows you to basically get someone off the ground in 8 seconds. And getting them off the ground will give them an endurance status effect as well. Really cool perk. I really like the utility of this perk. But you have to have taken either three protection hits, or you stunned the killer, or formed a safe hook rescue. This shouldn't be too difficult, and it's a solid perk. I think if that's kind of how your playstyle is, being a little bit more supportive to your team, then this perk might be pretty decent. However, again, the big problem with the dying state is that majority of killers do not really slug unless they're playing certain killers, and they usually just pick up the dying survivor. Like, you know, that's kind of the main problem of this perk, and that's why I couldn't put it higher than I wanted it to go. At 26, we have Renato. And honestly, I thought he would be all the way down at the bottom with Thalita, but arguably his perks are actually pretty decent. One of his strong ones is Blood Rush, which allows you to remove the exhaustion status effect once per game. And this means you can use something like Sprint Burst twice, once after the other, and that is really cool. His other perk, Background Player, is a perk that I really don't like personally. I think there's a lot of uselessness to this perk, but I have seen some plays where it can be very good. This perk gives you a 4-second sprint burst instead of a 3-second that normal sprint burst gives you, so that 1 extra second does matter, and this is fantastic for flashlight saving. So those survivors out there that enjoy flashlight saving, this is the perk for you, because this activates every time the killer picks up a survivor, and this can be done no matter where they are on the map. Now, his last perk, Collective Stealth, on the other hand, is maybe not as good as the other two. This allows you to create no scratch marks after you've healed someone, and you have to kind of stay together for this because you only have 12 meters apart to use this perk. It's it's whatever. It's another teamwork perk that will have a major cooldown. This does have a 140-second cooldown at tier 3, so yeah, not great in my opinion. At number 25, we have Ada, whose perks include wiretap, reactive healing, and low profile. Now let's just talk about maybe one of the worst perks in the game, which is low profile. Now, what this perk does, it allows you to create no pools of blood, scratch marks, or grunts of pain for 90 seconds if you are the last one in the trial or everyone is either in the dying state or hooked. The whole point of this perk is to try and find the hatch, and that automatically gets completely thrown in the trash because there are just 2 other perks that are just way better at looking for that hatch. So this perk's not good. Don't bring it. Next is reactive healing. Grants you 50% of the healing progression on your health bar when someone loses a health state within 32 meters of you while you're injured. And because the healing perks are incredibly competitive of one another because there's so many of them, this I don't know is better than say botany knowledge and inner healing. It does have its uses though. I think this comes down to preference. But on a positive note, she does have wiretap, which I really enjoy using. This is a perk that's more focused on for people who do generators a lot. It reveals the killer's aura within 14 meters when you are repairing a generator. This aura is also visible to all survivors, which makes it really good if you can do a chase around that generator, because you can always then mind game them. But most likely, the main problem, they'll just kick the generator and then you lose it entirely. So it's quite fun with something like Blast Mine that is coming up. So yeah, definitely have a look at this perk and see if you enjoy it. At the 24th spot, we have Michaela, and she owns 2 of the boon perks, and that is where it's debatable whether you think boon perks are good or not. In my opinion, there are situations where these perks can be very good. One of her boons is called Shadow Step, and this allows you to create no scratch marks and no killer aura can see you in a 24-meter range. This could be a good counter against barbecue and chili, for example, or if you're looping a killer around somewhere, they can't track your scratch marks. They do have its purpose, but it does take a while to bless the totem, and you know, for the killer it takes like a few seconds to destroy. So that is the major problem with the boons, and whether you think it's worth that time. Plus the killer can see it as well, so that's not always good, is it? However, with Circle of Healing, it increases your speed with 100% without a medkit, and this kind of encourages other survivors to heal each other, especially with a good 24-meter range again. On top of that, any survivor that goes in within this radius can see if you're injured or not. This is a nice little information boost to your team, but again, the same problem with the previous boon, it just takes too long. Her last perk, I think, is quite useful, in my opinion. I think it's rather underrated, actually. And this allows you to see everything on the map, except for totems. You can see everything in the map, whether they're chests, generators, the hooks, for example. All of these things you can see for up to 10 seconds. And you can choose when to see them. So you can maybe look for 2 seconds, then stop. This perk is one of the best perks, maybe the best perk, to find the hatch with, because this does allow you to see the hatch at the end game, and if you do it, it's across the whole map, so you'll be able to see it immediately. And I think that's what makes this perk pretty decent. It also allows you to see exit gates as well if it's an indoor map, so you know, it has its potential uses. At the 23rd spot, we have Ash. Now Ash would have been like way at the bottom like 2 years ago, but he has risen slowly, and he has Metal of Man, Flip Flop, and Buckle Up. Flip Flop has gained a lot more popularity recently. It lets you recover 50% of your wiggle time when on the ground. This is often paired with Plot Twist, for example, for really fun, stupid plays. And his other perk is Buckle Up, which once picked up from the dying state, you gain a 10-second endurance status effect. Pretty solid. Really, really solid perk. Again, the thing that's keeping it down is whether the killer decides to slug or not. But if you have perks like Flip Flop and Buckle Up, then you have perks that kind of impact the killer a lot if they don't pick you up immediately. And then lastly, he has Metal of Man. Allows you to take an extra hit when you've taken protection hits, and this is pretty solid. Like, it's an extra hit. Like, at the end of the day, it is an extra hit that you're allowed to take, but unfortunately the killer will be able to see you after that hit has been gone. So it's great for extending chases, and if you really like annoying the killer a lot, like if you want the killer's attention a lot, this perk is actually not terrible. Overall, I would actually choose Ash's perks if you want to do a dying state build, for example, because he does have probably like 2 of the best perks for that build. Next at 22, we have Jill Valentine. She has Counterforce, Resurgence, and Blast Mine. And while these perks aren't exactly top tier, there's nothing wrong with them at all. Blast Mine immediately stands out for me because it is a unique mechanic where it allows you to place a flashbang on a generator, and when the killer kicks it, they are blinded. This is a lot of fun. This is when you would bring something like Wiretap, so they gotta kick it again to get rid of the Wiretap. I think that's really cool. It just annoys the killer the most. It's not amazing, but it is great to see. This also gives you an aura of where the killer is as well. It tells all the survivors that they've kicked this generator as well. It's more of a fun perk, less than a competitive one, let's say. Counterforce speeds up totem cleansing and reveals the furthest totem from the first one you break. This, I think, is one of the best totem hunting perks out there. I mean, increase in speed. You can see where the other one is. Like, if you want to cleanse some totems, you bring this perk. Very good. Very, very good. And lastly, we have Resurgence, which allows you to heal 50% upon being unhooked, which makes it a lot easier for the other person to heal you when you are next to the hook. If they've unhooked you, then 50% has already been done. I think that's pretty solid. And number 21, we have Rebecca. Now, Rebecca was initially really high up, really high up, but unfortunately I had to put her down because of the new changes with camping, because the perk that really made her shine is Reassurance. Reassurance stops the timer when a survivor is on the hook, which applies to both the first phase and the struggle phase. Now, with the new changes to the camping mechanic, I do think it loses a lot of its potential uses. However, this perk can still be useful during endgame because the camping mechanic does not work during the endgame. And that is where I think this perk has become quite niche now. I think a little bit more experimentation is needed to really see how effective this perk is, but unfortunately, yeah, she's dropped quite heavily. Her other 2 perks are Hyper Focus and Better Than New, which again is really open to debate on whether you think these are good. Now, Hyper Focus rewards those really skilled players being able to hit great skill checks. Once you hit these great skill checks, it gives you a totem which increases the generator speed or healing speed. This potentially could be really good if you can hit great skill checks. I think this has to be paired with Stakeout, which gives you a great skill check even if you hit a good one, and I really think those 2 together might potentially be really good. And lastly, we have Better Than New, which isn't really worth bringing at all. When finishing healing another survivor, basically you give them an increase in their action speeds, which include healing, unlocking, cleansing, and blessing, and it gives them a 16%. Just bring leader. It's just bring leader. It's a lot better. At the number 20th spot, we have Quinton. This beautiful boy has Wake Up, Pharmacy, and Vigil. Vigil is probably maybe his most useful perk, which reduces all status effects by 30%, which includes Exhaustion. This is almost like a must-have for people who really enjoy using Exhaustion perks and relies on them a little bit more. And this works for other survivors around you as well, which is pretty fun. Wake Up, I can only see really be useful for those indoor maps where you don't really know exactly where those exit gates are. I've also seen killers bringing more perks to do with the end game, where it's either reducing the speed of opening up the door or blocking it entirely. This perk does give you a 15% faster speed when opening the door. I don't know. I don't think this perk is truly amazing. And then lastly, we have Pharmacy, which is just a perk that allows you to get immediately a green medkit. It's solid if you want to have a medkit, but nothing special about it really. At number 19, we have Laurie Strode. Now, Laurie has a lot of perks that don't really stand out, except for one, which is what exactly made her this high up in this list, and that is Decisive Strike. Decisive Strike is maybe one of the few perks that we have to counter tunneling. Now, what Decisive Strike does, it allows you to get off the killer's back within a 90-second window, assuming that you haven't touched any generators or healed anyone or do basically anything. This is a fantastic perk if you experience tunneling a lot, because it is a great way to try and escape from the killer. Now, her other 2 perks, Soul Survivor and Object of Obsession, are, let's say, one is fun and one is useless. So Soul Survivor is ultimately useless in my opinion. It requires other survivors to be game-ended essentially to make this perk even useful. So I don't really rate this perk very much. And Object of Obsession is quite fun, and that's all that it is. fun. This allows you to see the killer for 3 seconds every 30 seconds, and this works both for you and for the killer, so the killer will be able to see you as well. This is just a bit of a troll perk, to be honest. There's no other reason to bring this. Laurie's, if it wasn't for decisive, she would be pretty far down on this list. Now we're reaching to the halfway point, so if you have made it this far, make sure to comment this and I'll make sure to heart the comment. And also don't forget to subscribe. And number 18, we have Nancy. And she is from the Stranger Things DLC, which we luckily got back, which is always nice. And she offers inner strength, fixated, and better together. I really like Nancy's perks because overall, all her teachables are pretty solid. Starting off with better together, this allows you to see a yellow aura when you are doing a generator, so that other survivors might come and help you out on that generator as well. It's a nice information tool and can be very useful if the survivor is chasing a killer to make sure not to go near there. Fixated is a fantastic perk if you like to bring sprint burst. This allows you to move 20% faster while walking, and when you are running, you get to see your own scratch marks. So you are able to learn how the killer works and how they are able to find you a lot more effectively. And it's not really a useful perk in my opinion, but the 20% movement is very spicy. Highly recommended for those stealthy players. And then finally we have Inner Strength, a fantastic healing perk that allows you to heal within 8 seconds once you have cleansed a totem and then jumped into a locker. This is one of the better healing perks that we have, and I would highly endorse it. So yes, definitely have a look at Nancy and her perks. We should all have them by now, so definitely give them a try. And number 17, we have Kate Denson. Kate offers Windows Opportunity, Dance With Me, and Boil Over. And while Kate's perks might not be exceptional, let's say, Windows of Opportunity has been one of the most used perks in Dead by Daylight currently in this meta. And this basically allows you to see everywhere you can vault, which includes both pallets and windows. And this is really good considering most maps are RNG based, so they're randomized, and so you can learn exactly where the jungle gems are and whether a pallet has been used or not. It's pretty exceptional. It is pretty decent perk. I got to admit, it's just not really my sort of play style, especially if you play this game for like over 1,000 hours. But definitely if you are playing from a beginner's point of view, this is a very good perk. And even from an experienced point of view, it can be good as well, especially against those really sweaty killers. Dance With Me is a very situational perk. I feel like you can only really make this useful if you bring something like Life, because it only gives you a 3 seconds of no scratch marks after vaulting. So you do lose maybe a second for the animation, which is really annoying. But after that, you know, no scratch marks, but you need to be fast and you need to go around a corner very fast. Without Life, for example, it's pretty much useless. Lastly, we have Boil Over, a perk that allows you to wiggle a lot more aggressively so that the killer is a bit thrown off at time to times. They might crash into things a bit more often. So this is kind of a fun little perk, and I would actually bring if you're using something like a Dying State build. But Kate only deserves this spot because of how good Windows Opportunity is. At number 16, we have Guy Fieri, Jonah. Now he's an interesting one because he has an extremely good perk and maybe one of the worst perks in the game. Starting off with Overcome, his really good perk, which basically allows you to run an extra 2 seconds when you are injured. So when you have that initial hit and you get a bit of a sprint burst, then you get an additional 2 seconds on top of that. That's really, really good. I've been able to actually escape from the killer because he's like, just leave him. It's not worth it. So definitely have a look at this perk and see whether you think it's any good. Please bear in mind that this is an exhaustion perk, so whether you think that this is better than maybe Sprint Burst, Lithe, Balance Landing, then that's when you have to decide for yourself. But it's definitely a really decent perk. Now his really bad perk, Corrective Action, basically you have tokens, and if you are doing a generator with someone else and the other person messes up, it uses up one of your tokens. Yeah, wow. Most people don't really miss their skill checks, so don't bother with this. And then lastly, he has a boon perk, which allows you to pick yourself up from the floor, which is really cool actually. This gives you 100% recovery speed as well while in the dying state if you are within a 24-meter range of the boon. Again, the problem I had previously with boons is, of course, the very high visibility to the killer, and it does take a while to really bless the totem, so this can be situationally good, but overall just not really my sort of taste. Up next is Yuri Kimura at number 15. She she comes under being average, essentially, because all her perks are definitely has its uses, but nothing really stands out for me. She has Lucky Break, Any Means Necessary, and Breakout. In my opinion, Any Means Necessary is the one I really like the most. This perk allows you to pick up pallets when they are dropped. Assuming they're not broken by the killer, you can just pick it straight back up. There is no cooldown for this anymore, so its effectiveness has gone up. And this is really good for those pallets that killers don't really destroy. They usually destroy the ones that are really powerful, like the Killer Shack and certain jungle gyms. But the really insecure pallets for survivors, they will normally leave to try and trick you. Now, if you can go back to that location of those insecure pallets, you can pick that back up and then loop around it again. That's where you can really play this perk really well. Then add Smash Hit to the mix. Beautiful. A second perk, Breakout, allows the wiggle speed to increase by 25% if you are near someone who is about to get hooked. And this unfortunately does not work for yourself. That would be great, but can definitely help out your team. Unfortunately, the problem is still in this game for me is that loads of hooks are really close to each other, so you don't really get to see the opportunity to use this perk. Almost like you need a team for this perk to actually be useful. And then lastly, we have Lucky Break, which I think is quite underrated. It basically eliminates all pools of blood and scratch marks for 60 seconds when you're injured, and it's excellent for those stealthy players out there. This perk can also be replenished when you healed other survivors, so you get to use this again, which again, that's fantastic. It means you get to use it as much times as you are useful to your team, which isn't too bad. At number 14, we have Detective Tap. And he is the go-to guy if you like utility-focused perks. He offers Detective's Hunch, Tenacity, and Stakeout. Now, Tenacity really pairs really well in dying state builds, so if you like No Mither, Unbreakable, even Plot Twist, all those perks are really nice with Tenacity. You can also even like lose the killer occasionally, which is always fun. Detective's Hunch virtually shows everything on the map for 10 seconds when a generator is completed. So if you are a bit of a totem hunter, this perk is one of the big boys of perks for that playstyle. And then lastly, we have Stakeout, which provides a 1% boost when you hit a great skill check on a generator. You gain tokens. You can gain up to 4 tokens when you are in the killer's radius. And assuming that you're not in a chase, you get to use these tokens when you hit a good skill check instead of a great skill check. Now, this works fantastically with Overcome, which we've explained already. And I actually really like this perk. As a gen jockey myself, this is a perk that I normally bring quite a lot. Overall, I love Tap's perks, and I would highly suggest looking into him a little bit more if you like supporting your team a lot more. And number 13, we have the Resilient Bill. And this man has kind of fallen from grace a little bit. He has Unbreakable, Borrowed Time, and Left Behind. Let's talk about Left Behind real quick. It basically allows you to see where the hatch is, which is pretty solid, pretty standard. Probably the second best perk that we have to find the hatch. But the problem with this is that you can just bring an offering now to spawn the hatch in the Killer Shack. This still is a low percentage of maybe not spawning there, even with the offering. But, you know if it's in the Killer Shack, most likely you just bring the offering instead of this perk. Now, his more important ones, which is Unbreakable and Borrowed Time. Unbreakable allows you to pick yourself up from the dying state once per game, and you can do it 35% faster. Some people really swear by this perk, and honestly, I think it has been nerfed quite a bit, to be honest, considering we have other perks now that could also pick us up from the floor as well. I don't know, I don't feel like maybe this perk is, S tier anymore. It's definitely still very good, mind you, especially the 35% faster speed, but this will require the killer to down you first, and most killers pick you up anyway, so unfortunately, I barely get to use this perk effectively. And lastly, he has Borrowed Time. A great perk, in my opinion, but if the killer knows that someone is bringing Borrowed Time, they're just going to wait that extra 10 seconds that Borrowed Time gives. So essentially, you're able to unhook someone, and this gives that survivor a little bit extra time with the Endurance status effect and Haste, which is really cool. I kind of like the boost with the Haste, but with the Endurance, like I said, once the killer knows, it loses its value so quickly. But it is one of our few anti-tunneling perks as well, so it's something we got to consider. But I think a 13th spot is a very good place to put Bill. At number 12, we have the iconic Nicolas Cage, who really actually surprised me to be this high up in this list, considering most of his perks are absolutely ridiculous. He has Dramaturgy, Scene Partner, and Plot Twist. And let's just talk about plot twist for a second. This perk is... This perk allows you to drop to the floor whenever you feel like it, as long as you're injured and you have enough space. You can start recovering, you do not create any grunts of pain or pools of blood, and once you've recovered, you are fully healed with a 50% haste speed for 4 seconds. I would say that's pretty good. Now, is it better than Unbreakable? Well, I think that's up to you guys. But in my opinion, I think it is, and that's because it's in your power and not the killer's. The killer has to knock you down for Unbreakable, and then that's if they want to pick you up or not. But with Plot Twist, you kind of drop to the floor by your own choice, and you can kind of hide with that as well. There's a lot of more opportunity to use Plot Twist, so I think that's maybe one of his top tier perks for the Dying State build, in my opinion. Moving on to Scene Partner, on the other hand, well, you just scream at the killer and you get to see its aura for 5 seconds. It's okay, it's an information perk, but it's kind of like a better version of Object of Obsession, maybe? It's nothing to really look at. And then lastly has Dramaturgy. There are 4 random options that it can give you. You can either be exposed for 12 seconds, give you a 4-second free haste boost, or grants you a rare item with some add-ons. Yeah, move out the way, Ace in the Hole. This is a very strange perk, but most of the time that I use it, I'm able to get the haste status effect, which was always really cool. Problem is, it is an exhaustion perk, and we all know that the exhaustion perks are a little bit competitive. So maybe it's not really that high up, but I mean, a free item? I mean, that's not too bad. It's not too bad at all. And number 11, we have Felix. And he is an excellent, straightforward guy with perks that tell you straight up what they do and how you can use them. His standout perk, in my opinion, is Built to Last, which allows you to replenish a depleted item. Once you jump into a locker, it grants you 99% of the charges back to you. So basically, you have a brand new item again. This only takes 12 seconds, and I think this is worth doing, especially if you have a really good item, a flashlight, a really good toolbox, or even a med kit. Those are all really, really good. Jump into a locker, get it back again. Fantastic. You can also do this again. You can do this 2 more times, but it loses its effectiveness as it drops to 66% to 33%. That's when I personally believe it's not really worth it. But if you are a gen jockey or if you're a great healer, I would highly bring this perk. This perk really competes in the top tier, essentially, especially if you can use that toolbox twice. Yeah, it's definitely something you should consider. Visionary, nice and straightforward. You get to see 32 meters of generators. Nice and happy and great for indoor maps. And lastly, he has Desperate Measures. He gains 14% increase speed in healing actions when someone is injured. So if all 3 survivors are injured, that is 14 times 3. There's the maths right there. So yeah, you get a big boost in healing if everyone is injured. But as I've said before, the healing in this game are very competitive, and whether they are better than others, well, I think that's up to you. But in my opinion, it's maybe mid-tier. Now we're diving into the real competitive teachable perks now. At number 10, we have Adam, a survivor that doesn't really have fantastic perks apart from one to reach this number 10 spot, and that is Deliverance. This perk allows you to unhook yourself at 100% guarantee once you unhooked someone else safely. Now this is an extreme high risk, high reward. So if you are hooked first before you get to use this perk, you've lost it entirely. But the potential time saving of your whole team, if you are able to activate this perk correctly, is really decent. It's so good. You don't have to rely on your own team to pick yourself up off the hook. Is incredible. It means they can focus on doing those generators or healing someone else. It means they can do something a little bit more efficiently than saving your sorry ass. Yes, almost an S tier perk in my opinion. His other 2 perks are obviously nothing in comparison. He has Autodidact, which is actually a really nice healing perk, almost like an alternative to the consistent healing perks. You basically have to build up tokens to get a much bigger boost when you hit good skill checks. Once you have 5 tokens while healing people, your boosts to good skill checks when healing is incredible. Definitely worth if a lot of killers you keep bumping into are bringing Sloppy Butcher. This counteracts it, and there's no other perk that can really do it unless you want to brute force it with other consistent perks like Botany Knowledge. And then lastly, he has Diversion. Yeah, whatever. He throws a pebble at someone's face. It causes a little bit of scratch marks. Cool, man. It's cool. Not worth bringing, don't bother. At number 9, we have Jeff. I think Jeff's perks are all solid across the board. He has Breakdown, Aftercare, and Distortion. I really like Breakdown. It basically breaks the hook once you have unhooked yourself or you get unhooked, and this is broken for 180 seconds. It also shows where the killer is for 6 seconds as well, which is a nice boost to that. It's not too bad. It's a solid perk, especially if you're going to bring Saboteur and you want to bring that Saboteur build. His other perk, Aftercare, is again a very good perk as well. This provides you a permanent aura reading of survivors once you've unhooked or performed a healing action on, offering an unlimited range. Unlimited. You're going to see them across any part of the map. That's really good. That's crazy good. This aura disappears once you are hooked, so as long as you play carefully, you're going to be able to see exactly what your team is doing all the time. This is, I think, one of the best perks for aura reading of what your team is doing. And his last perk, Distortion, oh man, it is good. It is such a great perk. Now, Distortion is a token system perk again. You start off with 3 tokens and regenerates when you are near the killer. And this allows you to stop the killer being able to see your aura whenever they use a perk that allows you to do that. And now what I think is Barbecue and Chili, which is a very, very popular perk that killers use. And if you can counteract that, oh man. And then on top of it all, it gives you 10 seconds of no scratch marks. This is a fantastic perk. This is the must-have perk if you want to bring a stealth build, 100%. At number 8, we have Gabriel. And unfortunately, he was at the top 3. But as we've seen recently, he has his perk made for this has completely been nerfed. And I think we should discuss about that now. This perk allowed you to move at 3% haste when you are injured, and this is constant when you are injured. But now it has changed to when you are in the mending stage. So if you have been hit by a Legion, for example, then you gain that 3%. But unfortunately, you no longer get it just for being injured. This is a major nerf to this perk, and I think it's kind of well deserved because it was really powerful. Because on top of all of that, it also gave you an endurance status effect when you have healed someone else. So on top of that, it was kind of crazy and it was kind of deserved. But that doesn't mean that this perk is useless, because that endurance status effect is like half of what Buckle Up is. So, I mean, it has its uses still and it's still really effective, but it just has to be used a little bit more responsibly. His other 2 perks is called Scavenger and Troubleshooter. Now, Scavenger is one of his weaker perks. It basically enabled you to rummage through chests to get a toolbox, which is cool. But once you've hit 5 great skill checks, 1 doing a generator, you are able to get your toolbox back to full charges. But unfortunately, you do get a 50% slower repair speed for 30 seconds. I don't understand why you just won't bring Built to Last and bring your own toolbox, because that is just a lot better in my opinion. And then lastly, we have Troubleshooter, which I think is a really underrated perk. It basically allows you to see the most progress generator is on the map, which is, it's okay. But more importantly, it allows you to see the killer's aura when you drop a pallet. And this is fantastic for those jungle gym mind games, basically. This is much better for like the higher tier games instead of the lower tier, but definitely plays a really strong role. I almost want to try this perk a little bit more often because it teaches you exactly how a good killer plays, and you can then try and counteract that. I really like this perk, and I would actually encourage people to try it out. At number 7, we have Steve. He has Babysitter, Camaraderie, and Second Wind. I love Second Wind. It's a really strong perk in my opinion. It basically allows you to give yourself an instant healing. Once you unhook yourself, you're just broken for about 20 seconds, but after that, instantly healed. In order to activate this perk, you just need to heal 1 health state of someone else in order to get this perk. This means it can be done twice because this happens once you've unhooked yourself or someone else unhooks you. Camaraderie is a situational use perk again. Unfortunately, with the camping changes as well, it's kind of lost some of its flavor, but again, 34 seconds in the struggle phase is not too bad. I wouldn't personally bring it myself, and I don't really endorse people bringing it unless when you experience maybe like half campers, if you will. Lastly, we have Babysitter, which essentially means that once you unhook someone, you get all the flack. So they have no scratch marks. You get to see the killer's aura and they will see you as well. It kind of encourages the killer to chase you instead of them. It's a nice subtle perk to try and encourage the killer to come towards you and not endorse tunneling. but unfortunately this doesn't always work. But it's worth the try, especially if a survivor is getting bullied. At number 6, we have Feng Min. Now, she has always been a really solid, strong survivor with really good perks. She has Lithe, Alert, and Technician. Now, Lithe is one of the best exhaustion perks in my opinion, and that is because you get to use it once you have vaulted. Now, that I know that's quite opinionated, but I think that the idea that you can activate it instead of like sprint burst just makes it a lot better for me, because I've got more control over that. And you bring something with dance with me just makes it way better, just makes it so good. Alert is another really strong perk. It basically reveals all the killer's auras once they've kicked a pallet, a door, a generator, all that good stuff. You get to see the killer, like, and they kick a lot of stuff. So very good, especially if you have comms, you can talk to your other teammates exactly where the killer is and everything. Pretty solid perk, a really good communication perk. And then lastly, Technician. It's not great. It basically, if you miss a skill check, it doesn't notify the killer or anything. It just regresses, and that is the end of that. Great for beginners if you can't hit skill checks very well, but apart from that, just steer clear of this perk. Now we're going into the top 5. I'm hoping you're still here with me, or you skipped to this spot, which I hope you haven't. But at number 5, we have Claudette. Now, if you are looking for a healing support survivor with good teachables to those playstyles, then Claudette is for you. She has botany knowledge, empathy, and self-care. Now, botany knowledge is probably my favorite healing perk out of all of it. It basically just gives you a solid 33% boost to healing, either yourself or to other survivors. Just so good. That is so good. There's no gimmick around it. It's just, you can do it better. Just don't use a medkit when you use this, because it does negatively affect that. I would make this the number 1 perk if you do enjoy healing survivors. Empathy is another really good perk as well. Basically, you can see within 128 meters, or just nearly a limited amount of meters, of any injured survivors. So it means you can go rush towards them to heal them, or maybe it will tell you that the killer is chasing them. It's again a good communication perk, just like the others in this list. And then lastly, we have self-care, which I believe is a trap perk. I don't believe that it is a very good perk, but loads of beginners like to think, oh look, you can heal yourself. Great. Well, calm down, hold your horses. Look how slow you heal. Is that really worth it? You have to bring botting knowledge with this, and maybe another perk to make that even worth doing. So be very careful about this perk. At number 4, we have Nia. Wow, okay, Nia is a very good survivor, especially if you like being a bit stealthy, but very effective against chases, and even a bit of support as well. She has balanced landing, streetwise, and urban evasion. Ugh. Okay, let's talk about urban evasion. Please do not just crouch in the corners doing nothing, okay? This perk allows you to move at 100% normal speed, basically walking speed, but crouched. Yeah, we've seen too many survivors bring this perk and then just crouch around everywhere. You're going way too slow. You should only be using this situationally to try and escape from a killer. Do not use this 24/7. Now, I think she has another strong exhaustion perk, which is balanced landing. It only works if you drop from a great height, and this gives you a sprint burst. Not too shabby, but unfortunately not every map has great heights, especially how easy. Like in comparison to Lithe, it's a lot harder to use and requires a little bit more skill. But nonetheless, it is an exhaustion perk, and exhaustion perks are always great. And then lastly, she has Streetwise, a great perk if you have a team that brings, all 4 of you bring toolboxes. 15% more item efficiency, and to your team within 8 meters. Really good stuff. Gen jockeys out there, look at this perk. At number 3, we have Zarina, and I believe that she has 2 of the most strongest perks in the game. Her perks are Off the Record, Red Herring, and For the People. Let's get Red Herring out of the way. It's not a great perk. It just basically allows you to jump into a locker and the generator you were doing previously goes off. Cool, man. You've just wasted the killer's time, maybe. I don't really see too much purpose for this except to waste the killer's time a little bit, but they're just going to kick the generator you were just doing. Okay, so let's just go straight into the really good perks. For the People, instantly heal someone, and in return you become injured and getting the broken status effect for about 80 seconds. An instant heal, guys. That's crazy good. If you're a skilled player and you're trying to help out your team, instant heal. And then on top of that, bring Buckle Up or Made for this, gain an endurance status effect. Hell, both of you can get an endurance status effect. I mean, you can clutch games with that sort of build out there, guys. Definitely try it out. It's a lot of fun. And then lastly, she has Off the Record, which I think is the best anti-tunneling perk that we have. It allows you to have an endurance status effect for 80 seconds once you're unhooked. You also don't create any grunts of pain either. Wow. As long as you don't do gens or touch totems, this perk is so good. Have this with Decisive Strike and you're just going to make a tunneler's day really bad. At number 2, we have Dwight. Oh, my beautiful boy. Dwight is a great support character and one of the best guys for gen jockeying. I know it's quite controversial that I put him up here, but I think he's thoroughly deserved with his perks. He has Prove Thyself, Leader, and Bond. Prove Thyself really stands out for me as the best gen perk that we have because it allows you to be more efficient when other survivors are doing gens with you. This is the only perk that allows you to do that as well. It's almost like a must-have perk, in my opinion, to anyone's build. You can try and support your team as much as you can. This is a great perk to bring. His other fantastic perk is Leader. It's a little bit less effective in comparison to Prove Thyself, but has its different purposes. It gives you 25% speed to most actions to other people. So not to yourself, but to others. This could be unhooking you, unhooking others, opening exit gates, opening chests, all that good stuff. 25% faster. What's there not to love about that? And then lastly, Bond. Nice and simple. You get to see survivors' auras within 36 meters. There's no gimmicks, there's no nothing. 36 meters. You get to see what everyone's doing. I mean, what's there not to love about Dwight's perks? If you enjoy being a great team player, I would highly suggest looking at Dwight's perks. Now, at the number 1 spot, we have Meg. Finally, we've reached to the top. She has Adrenaline, Sprint Burst, and Quick and Quiet. Now, Quick and Quiet is still a solid perk, but in comparison to other 2 perks, maybe not as great. But if you are a stealthy player, this is a really good perk to keep really stealthy, jumping into lockers without making noises, maybe vaulting without any notifications, all that good stuff. The go-to perk for stealth players. Now, Adrenaline. And now I talk about Adrenaline a lot on this channel, but Adrenaline is my favorite perk in the entire game. This is because once per game, once all the generators have been done, you gain a 5-second sprint burst and an instant heal. I'm usually injured a lot, and this happens regardless whether you're doing the last gen or not. So you could be in a chase mid-game and then all of a sudden Adrenaline. You escape the killer or you've just distracted him for much longer and then he has down you now and it's... Now imagine 4 players bringing Adrenaline. The killer's just going to say game over, man. Just game over. This perk has saved my skin so many times. If I want to play competitively, this is the must-have perk for me. And then lastly, we have Sprint Burst. Maybe not my favorite exhaustion, but it is the most used exhaustion in the game. It's really simple to use. You just start sprinting. Once you start running, you sprint for 3 seconds. You know, that's good. It's really good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I almost feel like I have to tell people to bring Fixated if you are going to bring this perk because you don't want to be walking around everywhere. But you also need to walk around to reduce the exhaustion status effect. So, I mean, it's a really good perk to kind of just get away from situations or get yourself in a better position. And that is why I believe Meg is the best survivor in terms of teachables. Thank you so much. If you have watched the entire thing, I salute to you and I appreciate you sticking around for this long. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video.